Hopefully you took some time and tried to do some investigation about how you would complete the square. I'm going to start now by just working through some problems with you. And these are not easy problems by any means. You're going to have to do some solving by square roots to get the answers, and we'll have some complex numbers as answers too. But let's start with this one. Let's solve this equation, and let's do it by completing the square. If you'll notice, I couldn't solve this one by factoring anyway, because there's not two numbers that multiply to give me 3 and add to give me 10. So I'm going to start this one by completing the square. And if we complete the square, we know that we need to have a blank right here. So I'm going to keep the x squared and keep the 10x, but I'm going to move this 3 to the other side because this number right here needs to be half of that number but squared, and -3 is not. So I want to put a number there that makes this easy to complete the square. So the number that should go there is half of 10 squared. What is half of 10? 5. So what I'm going to put right here is 5 squared. But I had an equation that was equal here. So if I add 5 squared, which is really 25 to this side, then if I want to keep them equal, I have to add 25 to this side. So here's what I've got now. X squared plus 10x plus 25 equals 28. So now this side, since this number and this number, half of this number squared is here, then I know that this one is going to factor to x plus 5 squared. Because x plus 5 times x plus 5 is x squared plus 10x plus 25. So notice the number that goes here is half of that number, and this is the number squared that goes right there. So on the other side now I have 28. Now we're ready to solve an equation just like we did before. I'm going to square root both sides. So I get x plus 5 equals plus or minus the square root 28. And I'm going to go ahead and solve that 28. That is 4 times 7. So I have plus or minus 2 square root 7 equals x plus 5. And now I'm going to move the 5 to the other side by subtracting. And remember, if we're writing it in standard form, it goes in the front. So x equals -5 plus or minus 2 square root 7. Let's do another problem. So this will be example 2 of completing the square. And our goal for doing this is to solve, but also we're going to learn how to take a problem in standard form and turn it into vertex form. So let's do this one. X squared plus 6x minus 8 equals 0. Well, first of all, I want to see if this is a good one. Is this number half of that number but squared? Half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9, so it's not quite there yet. So I'm going to move the 8 to the other side so that I can complete the square. So now I want to make this a complete the square problem. So I'm going to do something squared equals. So I have to figure out what I want to put here and here. So I'm going to use half of this number, and half of 6 is 3, and it's going to be plus because that's plus. And so I've really added half of that number squared, so I've added 9 over here, then I have to 9 here. So on this side now I have 17. And now I'm going to square root both sides. So I get x plus 3 equals plus or minus square root 17. I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. So x equals -3 plus or minus square root 17. So let's go ahead and just go do one where we change this to a vertex form problem so you can see how beneficial this might be. Let's find one here. Let's do y equals so I know now that I'm graphing because I'm saying y equals x squared plus 8x plus 15. So I could graph this one by standard form, -b over 2a. I could graph it by factoring if it factored. We're going to choose to graph this one by standard form. So we're going to start, since this number is not half of that number squared, I'm going to move 15 to the other side. And since I can't subtract 15 from y, I'm going to leave it just like this. So it looks something like that. So now I want to add half of this number and square it here. The reason I want to do that is because I want to end up with something squared. So what is half of 8? 4. So I'm going to put 4 here, and because that's a plus, I'm going to keep it a plus. If this were a minus, then I would make that a minus. So what is half of 4 squared? 16. So since I added 16 to this side, I have to add 16 to this side to keep them equal. So over here now I have y plus 1. And so now to move this back into vertex form, I'm going to move the 1 to the other side. So I have y equals x plus 4 squared, subtract 1. Now this is in vertex form, so let's graph it. This tells me I'm going to go 4 to the left and 1 down. And since there's a positive 1 right there, that means I'm going to go over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1, over 2, up 4, over 2, up 4. If I wanted to, I could put this in my graphing calculator and look at the table. And what I should see on the table is this. There should be a point that says -4, -1. There should be one that says -3, 0. There should be one that says -5, 0. If I put it in the table in the calculator. The axis of symmetry would run through x equals -4. This isn't the easiest thing to do, solving by completing the square. It's something that you might see a little bit in trig, and you might see a little bit in calculus. The only reason that we would use it in regular algebra 2 or honors algebra 2 is to put something into vertex form.